YouTube viewers, my name is Kiss and welcome back to KTV Network. Today I am reacting to Mug Thief. I love his videos. We are reacting to what is Nintendo wants to bully us into submission. Submission is the right word. Okay. All right. Let's get started. Let's see what Mug Thief has to say.
Creators of PAL. Nintendo has an ongoing lawsuit with Pocket Pair, the creators of Palworld. That lawsuit, based on patent infringement, is taking place locally in Japan, and for a while now, everything's been quiet since a lot of these legal processes take time. However, since the process started, we actually finally got a look into the patents that Nintendo is claiming that Palworld was infringing, of which there was a mechanic that didn't seem to actually be targeted, since Palworld didn't acknowledge it and hadn't done anything about it. And ever since that whole thing started, I have been thinking in the back of my head just how terrible this is for the overall health of video games. You see, this lawsuit isn't really about Nintendo trying to preserve their IP, because it's not an IP lawsuit. It's not about them protecting their business, because it's pretty fair to say that these games are not actually competitors. This is a lawsuit that the deeper you dig into it, the clearer it becomes that it's being done out of spite, and because Nintendo is famously a very trigger-happy company when it comes to litigating. From bigger stuff like this that makes absolutely no sense to smaller.
That is crazy. Nintendo has collected 9 coins. Nintendo has relocked content 38 times. Nintendo. What the fuck is wrong with them? Excuse me. Nintendo invited lawyers to Smash 34 times. Nintendo attempted a trademark battle against a Costa Rican supermarket. What the fuck is wrong with y'all? Nintendo files a lawsuit against Pocket Pair. Nintendo related content removed from GMOD System Workshop. Yuzu and Citra emulators stomped by Nintendo. You know what? Y'all can go to hell. Coming after Yuzu and Citra. What else? You gonna come after Delta? Damn.
Very trigger-happy company when it comes to litigating. From bigger stuff like this that makes absolutely no.
Nintendo issued I'm never ever. This just reaffirms my stance that I'm never ever going to stream a Nintendo game, and I'm never gonna buy a Switch too. Probably not. Maybe if it's hand-me-down or whatever. I might take that sentiment back, but I'm definitely not going to get it at full price. You got me fucked up. Nintendo issued a takedown on scams of an SM64 guy. Wow. Nintendo Steam Deck videos were removed by Nintendo. Nintendo removed Smash from Evo. The eShop for the 3DS and Wii U will shut down for 2023. Y'all suck. YouTube channel received over 2,200 copyright blocks. Go to hell. Pokemon FPS videos were removed. Gary Bowser pleads guilty. A freaking reptile. Oh wait, no, is that the Canadian hacker was found guilty and has to pay $4.5 million. Oh, that's not Bowser, the CEO. The price for the Switch Online expansion revealed.
No sense to smaller stuff that just pisses a lot of people off, even if it does make sense. As some of you might know, rip in pieces AM2R. But through the entire process and everything regarding this lawsuit, I feel like people haven't really talked enough about the overall danger that this poses. About how in many ways this is an actual threat to creativity within video games, with Nintendo kind of just swinging around how much power they have in a way that feels like a warning sign to any other studio, and especially indie studios, the smaller guys, who might attempt to do something that for any reason they could go after if they felt like it. This is a very strange situation, which is very much worth covering in detail, just as I think that it's pretty important to take another extra look at Palworld and just remember why that game is so successful, because it truly does some really interesting things with the creature collecting genre that I think a lot of people don't give it credit for, and how Nintendo, instead of learning lessons from indie games that are pushing a genre that they do not own forward, are instead trying to just litigate them into the ground. So trust me, we're in for a really wild ride today, but I think it's going to be fun and entertaining and very interesting. Oh, and hi, by the way, hi, I'm Mug. And if you're new here, welcome. And if you're not new here, welcome back. It is great to see you. I don't know what's going on with you, but you've got like this glow to your skin. Something special's going on. I know that for sure. And look, as per usual, if you enjoyed this video, you find it informative, you find it entertaining, hit the like button. Helps the video reach more people, helps it get out there in the YouTube algorithm that seems to be going more and more crazy every day, and that is greatly appreciated. Let's get into it. Palworld, as a video game, just in case you missed the whole thing surrounding it, is a combination of kind of an open world crafting, base building, and automation game paired with a creature collecting game. Think something like some of the Dragon Quest spin-offs, or Shin Megami Tensei, or Persona, or Pokemon. It's technically an indie game made by a company called Pocket Pair, set up in Japan.
And this brings up a thought. If I ever react to a Nintendo game, I'm going to make sure that it is that it is a multi-platform game. That meaning it could be Nintendo, but it could be PCs. Y'all don't know.
And that has around 40-ish different employees, so fairly big indie company. It really gained a lot of traction for being called Pokemon with Guns at some point in its marketing campaign, but then when it launched, there was this huge surprise that it wasn't just some meme game, it was actually very good at what it did and very creative in a lot of ways that people really wanted a game like Pokemon to be. Maybe not in core Pokemon, but yes, in its spin-offs or the take on the genre overall. How popular was it? Well, over 12 million copies sold in the first month. And this is a game that was also available and still is on Game Pass. To call it a success is an understatement of really large proportions. But none of that came free of controversy. Turns out that Pocket Pair had made other games
I should maybe play Palworld and see what's up
in the past, and some people had complaints about how those were left or felt unfinished in many ways, how they had published other games that may or may not have used AI-generated assets or felt a little bit derivative of other games. And of course, the height of it all was that a lot of the designs of the different pals in Palworld were very reminiscent of things within Pokemon, which many of them are very defensible because Pokemon are really not that original. They just have their own very unique charm to them. But what if we take Mouse and make it electric, or take Pony and make it fire, or take Anubis and make him into just a creature? Hard to be like, oh, that is just so highly specific. And I don't see Nintendo suing Chariots of Fire, and that has horses with fire in it. I haven't watched the movie, but like, from the name. Jokes aside, a lot of the designs are very close to the things that you would find in Pokemon, while never really, at least technically legally proven, I guess, at this point, crossing
this ghost character next to him right here, it looks a lot like Ghost Ghastly and Haunter, kind of like a combination of the two, but cosmic.
Line into something that is actually illegal. That didn't stop people from going
Let me not give Nintendo any ideas.
Absolutely wild, trying to search high and low to claim that Pocket Pair had directly stolen Pokemon from the Nintendo Corporation and from Game Freak. All of this controversy amidst its tremendous success made it the talk of the town.
I wonder, can all this be avoided if they decide to partner up and make this and turn this into some kind of spin-off game? I wonder if letting them keep their, original concept and everything, some leeway. But I wonder if this lawsuit can end if they come to some kind of agreement. Yeah.
For quite a while. And the most amazing part of the whole thing was just how many people were saying that Nintendo should definitely sue them because of the designs of the monster. Now, once again, let me be very clear here. Nintendo, if they can sue, they will. It's in their blood. Like, it is part of their code at this point. This is what they do. For better or worse, and whether you want to lump it in with Nintendo overall, or you just want to chalk it up to the legal corporate side of Nintendo and still defend, their game.
They're using that litigation system to the max. I think they want to send a message, not to be trifled with, but they're also turning off their consumers. So
because they do still make great.
Everything that has an action has a consequence, cause and effect, and that's something I like about the Matrix: cause and effect.
games, even if some of the recent decisions around those games and a lot of other stuff is maybe not ideal. That's up to you. But it is undeniable that they're really into lawsuits. And so eventually, the lawsuit came crashing down. At that point, everybody expected Nintendo to sit there and say, hey, you ripped off Pokemon. And that is what they did, just not in the way that you might have expected. You see, Nintendo really likes patenting things. How do I know that? Because back when this started, and again for this video, I have dug through literal hundreds of Nintendo patents, including the 3 ones that are at the center of this lawsuit. But it is just ridiculous how many patents Nintendo has. But what exactly are patents? Why are they so important? Why does Nintendo spend so much time patenting things? What's the point of all of this? And why is it so important to the future of video games and creativity, and especially, keyword here, iteration within the industry? Well, I'm glad you asked, and I'm going to do my best to explain some of that in a way that's quick, entertaining, and fun. Thankfully, I do have an actual background in corporate communications and also cross-sectioned with a lot of different legal departments. So although I'm not an expert by any means on the topic, I am really good at reading these sorts of things and understanding some of it and the dangers. And so yeah, I do have a bit of a master's in corporate BS, and in case you were wondering, yes, I've been fighting my entire professional career to end it. So let's get down to business. What exactly is a patent? The quickest way, and the way that I think most people probably just innately understand it, is that it's kind of like IP protection for ideas. The technical word used is inventions, but that, can be interpreted in many different ways. That means that if somebody uses things that you've patented, inventions that you have, be that mechanisms or ways of actually doing things, and of course including certain technologies that certain companies have exclusive rights to use and differentiate themselves within a market, you can then sue. Hey, I invented this thing, it is what gives my brand or my product its essence, it's what gives it the edge in the market. I patented it and it was a valid patent, nobody else can use it, and if you do, you have to pay me and stop doing that. Cool. What does that mean in the realm of video games? Why has Nintendo patented a million different things? Well, to be fair, a lot of the things that they've patented are actually hardware related. So it refers more to actual mechanical parts and interactions of hardware and how they actually work and come together, or how they work in conjunction with software. Patents for everything, from the HD rumble of the Switch to the way that the Joy-Cons clip to, of course, the way that the new Joy-Con 2s magnetically clip. Everything that is patentable, they have patented, found an excuse to say that it's unique and theirs, and protected themselves. And again, not an expert, especially not for Japan, but generally speaking, and from my own experience and reading a lot to make this video, a lot of things regarding more mechanical and engineering related patents is pretty straightforward in how it goes down. And none of that is the dangerous part of what Nintendo is doing. The dangerous part is that they have been patenting forever.
The dangerous part is what? My headphones decided to go wonky cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs at the last minute. Headsets.
Is pretty straightforward in how it goes down. And none of that is the dangerous part of what Nintendo is doing. The dangerous part is that they have been patenting forever video game mechanics. Ideas of what a video game can be. And if that sounds crazy to you, it is because it is. Now that doesn't mean that they have tried to follow through on all of the potential patent infringement that has happened over the years. Probably because a lot of it wouldn't stand in court, possibly because a lot of it would be very expensive to pursue as well, despite them having, it's Nintendo, they have a lot of money. Really, be it for one reason or another, they just decided not to do it. But I think it's really easy to understand why the concept is dangerous. What if somebody patented, for example, the idea of having a third-person camera? Maybe to make it a little bit more specific, a third-person camera that you control, and that its control is relative to the player character. Well, yeah, Nintendo does have patents for that. What are you talking about? Of course they do. Have they enforced it? No, but they do have it. So imagine a world where just the basic idea of maybe a game being in first person and containing shooting of enemies, and yes, it could be more broad or more specific depending on what would be acceptable for that. A lot of this is like very technical language regarding it, especially for these sorts of software related patents of like Entity 1 needs to shoot projectiles and the mechanism by which they would travel and register if they hit somebody or not and what happens if they hit. But that is something that is patentable and therefore enforceable in the sense that you could take somebody to court because they made a first-person shooter of any description. I think this very clearly shows why these sorts of things are incredibly dangerous to creativity, be that from other big studios or, God forbid, indie games. How dare they? How dare they be good? And I wish that these were just pie-in-the-sky ideas, but we've already seen the dangers of patents in many, many different ways, and I would say that the two most famous ones are the Shadow of Mordor games and how Warner Brothers patented the Nemesis system, which famously made it very difficult for anybody else to try and even attempt a system like it. And of course, things like way back in the day, Namco patented the idea of having interactive loading screens.
I spoke about the Nemesis system in one of the other videos, WB something.
If you've ever wondered why loading screens couldn't have mini games for the longest time, that was Namco. And so before we get into the importance of Palworld as a game in its genre, I really think it's worth just taking a moment to look at the 3 patents that Nintendo are saying that they are infringing. And of course, I don't think that these hold up in any way, but feel free to come to your own conclusion. The first patent that Nintendo is referencing is that they have patented the idea of throwing a spherical object to capture a monster, and that there is a success chance based on certain circumstances.
I did see that, and that is very similar. Capture rate, the tossing, and like the tossing before a complete capture, the sphere look. But then again, a bunch of and now they've changed that into some kind of summoning system, which which you could also argue many games have a summoning system. So, but it seems that the capturing system is mostly synonymous with Pokemon, so they do have an argument there. But I want to hear what he has to say.
Including the RNG chance of being able to be successful in capturing that monster player or that character, and then adding them to essentially your inventory. For what it is, this patent, like many others, is incredibly long and highly specific in some cases.
And also, Palworld has also copied this layout here of Pokemons that are being displayed. So, like, over here, is shown in a previous video for, I think, Dr. Disaster. It's very close.
Theirs is incredibly long and highly specific in some cases, down to the nitty-gritty of like selecting the directional area in which something is thrown and how that interacts, and the player character having use of those characters and the enemy character and how the capture works, and like the different statuses that would indicate if a capture can happen or is successful. The other patent is of
which game is that, by the way?
Using characters in combat, and specifically the idea of how you put them out into battle. This goes into like assuming a stance under which you then throw the object in which the character is contained, and then the character appears from that object. This had to be tackled directly by the Palworld team, which had in an update to remove the fact that you would just throw out your pals and have them appear in combat and interact and run around with you in the world. And instead now they just kind of like appear, they kind of just pop next to you, because that would theoretically be okay by skirting this patent law, but having them inside an object and releasing them out through the action of taking a position 1 in which you aim the object.
I would say, if they wanted to make, and I think I mentioned this in a previous video, if they want to make that summoning, if it, instead of just appearing just like a summoning, some kind of like, you know, have them come from the sky and with their actual powers, you know what I'm saying, with the elements of that. Yeah, or having them come from somewhere, whatever their elements are. Use that to your advantage.
Object, and then taking position 2, in which you throw the object, and then by consequence of that, the character pops out of the object. That illegal. And look, to give the benefit of the doubt, while I do think that maybe Nintendo is doing this because they just think that like PAL spheres and Pokeballs are too similar, at the end of the day, what this patent is targeting is not the idea of Pokeballs, it's the idea of you being a player character that summons creatures that fight for you, or anything that fights for you technically, assuming position 1, taking something, into position 2, throwing it, and having something pop out. This is not new. There are tons of games in which summoning things kind of just happens that way. It doesn't have to be sometimes it's magic potion files, sometimes it's cassettes, who knows? And they would somehow still be covered by it. The third one makes a lot more sense now that we've seen Pokemon ZA, because when originally this news broke, if you just read through it normally, you would think that it had to do with Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, and the fact that you can ride your Pokemon, Miraidon, or the one that's less cool, and therefore I have forgotten the name. I know it's called Koraidon, I just don't like him. However, not really because of Scarlet or Violet, and not really because of what we have seen of ZA and how you can actually interact with the Pokemon in the world now.
No. Oh, no.
Select from the characters Scarlet and Violet, and the fact that for it,
what are you doing?
The
Stop
object,
it.
that illegal. And look, to give the benefit of the doubt, while I do think that maybe Nintendo is doing this because they just think that like PAL spheres and Pokeballs are too similar, at the end of the day, what this patent is targeting is not the idea of Pokeballs, it's the idea of you being a player character that summons creatures that fight for you, or anything that fights for you technically, assuming position 1, taking something, into position 2, throwing it, and having something pop out. This is not new. There are tons of games in which summoning things kind of just happens that way. It doesn't have to be sometimes it's magic potion files, sometimes it's cassettes, who knows? And they would somehow still be covered by it. The third one makes a lot more sense now that we've seen Pokemon ZA, because when originally this news broke, if you just read through it normally, you would think that it had to do with Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, and the fact that you can ride your Pokemon, Miraidon, or the one that's less cool, and therefore I have forgotten the name. I know it's called Koraidon, I just don't like him. However, not really because of Scarlet or Violet, and not really because of what we have seen of ZA and how you can actually interact with the Pokemon in the world now, but because of Legends Arceus. Because this one is basically saying that you cannot have creatures that you own and use them for traversal. That you can't like mount them or fly on them or anything regarding movement with them. Because it starts off talking about how the player character can have different creatures and can use those creatures essentially as mount. That among the characters owned by the player character, a riding instruction is given and the player character is made to ride the selected rideable character and made movable. That is the start of that path. But it is also absolutely ridiculous in the context of what you're telling me is that mounts are not allowed. Again, if we really want to specify this into the idea
That's
of
ridiculous.
the player character can select from the characters owned by...
You can mount many animals in many games. What are you talking about? That's a stupid argument.
By the player character. These are all very subjective terms in my opinion. If I had different unique horses or mounts in a game, if I could use those mounts in a different context, if there was like a mount fighting system
That argument,
in Assassin's Creed, but also in the open world, I can select from those animals, those characters that are named, and just mount them and ride them. Is that infringing Nintendo's copyright? That's ridiculous. So we would assume that wouldn't really hold up or be viable. So it's got to be pretty highly specific towards the Pokemon thing, but even then the basic idea of using creatures like as a vehicle or as something that you more directly interact with in the world is a really difficult thing to just uphold. So where have they decided to strike Then, now that we know with the recent changes that Palworld has announced, using the creatures or the characters to fly. Well, I guess technically the more correct term to use here is gliding. So certain pals can be used for gliding, and those are now just going to be substituted by the gliders. There was always a glider in the game, but now they're expanding that to cover for not being able to use the pals as gliders. And it sort of feels like Nintendo slowly trying to destroy every little element of Palworld as they keep funneling them into the lawsuit. But that immersion that makes Palworld stand out in the creature collecting genre of actually using your pal can
Okay, this makes me not want to play the game now because that's terrible.
not exist, because this patent is one of the things that they are being attacked for. So we've gone from a patent regarding Legends Arceus that patents a method that enables smooth switching between multiple boarding objects in a game in which a player character rides an object and moves around, to its also implementation within Scarlet and Violet, to then that not really being that applicable and can only apply to the flying monsters in Palworld. All of this leads me to the final 2 points. Why Palworld is so important and I guess technically pretty threatening to Nintendo, and why they've decided to take action. So look, I know that not everybody likes Palworld. A lot of people feel that it's like a rip-off of Pokemon, and that's bad, and I hate.
It's gonna come into its own. It's gonna find its own way, and by that time, I feel like the reason Nintendo feels threatened is because they know that the Palworld has a system, a fresh system that Pokemon has been suffering for quite some time to come out of and to recreate somehow. It's just they're stuck in their own ways, you know. They're stuck in that same formula, even though they try to get out of it with Pokemon Arceus, which was an excellent game, by the way. It's just that same formula, same towns, same number of badges, same, the legend, the Elite Four, and the champion, same old. So they feel threatened because there are no new ideas, and Palworld has those ideas, so they're trying to come after them.
Hated because I love Pokemon too much. And look, that makes perfect sense. For those of you unaware, Pokemon as an entertainment IP is the most.
If I do this, I'm just trying to reset my headset because it continues to give me this problem.
Most valuable IP in the world. Genuinely. There is nothing more valuable than Pokemon. It is a really, really big deal. But what I'm about to say doesn't come from a hatred of, unnecessary litigation and pushing the small guy around with your big weight. I mean, it does, but it also comes from a position of loving Pokemon. I think Pokemon is pretty cool. Like, as an IP, I like Pokemon. I grew up with Pokemon. Like many people, they're a very important part of my childhood and of culture, and I just really enjoy them in many different ways. They make me smile, like they do to a lot of people. And I've played at least one of the games of every mainline Pokemon release because I enjoy them. As a Pokemon fan,
for some reason, it does it with this exact video. That is so freaking annoying. That is so annoying. Sorry.
And as a really non-controversial statement I'm about to say, as a fan that believes that Legends Arceus is the best Pokemon game that they've ever made, as a game, I mean, and who also has pretty high expectations for ZA, I think Palworld is an amazing game. Because while it doesn't revolutionize anything when it comes to its game mechanics or the things that it decides to implement, there's creature collecting, and there's shooting, and there's building and crafting and resource collecting and automation systems. Sure, popular things to mix together, that's obvious, but it's a brilliant game in how it takes the concept of having creatures, of having monsters that you really care for, and really putting them in the world and giving them a purpose and a use beyond just being in your inventory. Sure, historically in games like Pokemon, you do have certain Pokemon that you give your TMs and stuff, and this one flies and this one surfs and this one chops down trees. But Palworld takes that idea of creature collecting and really goes wild with it in what that would entail with other game systems involved. Certain creatures.
You know what Palworld could do, and I don't know if this changes the genre completely, but they could add cosmetics for the player, that if they wanted to glide, they can glide. If they wanted to fly, they could, by just adding like prosthetic wings. Like that would be something, and you could fly around with your pals. Or well, I don't know the setting, but I was gonna say like a jetpack or like a Tony Stark suit, you know, something similar to that. But yeah.
Creatures are appealing not just because of their combat stats or how they are efficient against the weaknesses of other creatures, or to take on specific, the equivalent of gym leaders, opponents that also control pals, but because this one would be a sick mount. Because this one looks awesome when you glide using it. Because this one is really good at this one thing that you can do with them, be it making them mine in the field. You better mine and get me the resources I need to make more pal spheres, or this one's really good at building, or this one's really good at maintaining the fire. It's about really immersing you in a world that, while we are aware is what Pokemon wants to inspire with its universe, we never really get to see in the games. We never really get to neither see other people truly using Pokemon for day-to-day tasks, or how they work for so many different things in life. We only get snippets of like, well, what is a farm in the world of Pokemon, when there are Pokemon that people have that can be used for farming. Within those rare snippets, it's really cool to glimpse that world. And what Palworld really reaches out and does is take a bunch of very popular game mechanics from the last years and actually give us a chance to kind of exist in that and actually use our creatures, our named creatures that have their own personality traits and that are gloomy or happy or sad, or that you have more or less attachment to, and put them in a world where they actually do things beyond sitting in your backpack to go fight other creatures. And given its wild success, I'm willing to say that that resonated incredibly well with millions of people. Obviously, people love the creature collecting genre, and the fact that Nintendo has been making, honestly, substandard games. I mean, Game Freak, sure, not Nintendo itself, and not really trying to evolve their literal most valuable universe in the world into something where people can really kind of enjoy the fantasy of Pokemon, of living with them, of building a house, of starting, I guess, a business in a sense, where these Pokemon exist for more than just combat. And that somebody else, an indie developer, was smart enough to kind of combine all of these ideas in a very, let's throw everything in the kitchen sink into it and see what comes out. Did that to tremendous success, which is just a real slap in the face of Nintendo to say, hey, please guys, when are you gonna do this? Because here's the thing, right? If Nintendo made Palworld, but with Pokemon, the thing that is the most valuable in the world, it would sell triple what Palworld did, just on the strength of the name alone. And Nintendo, instead of taking that cue and understanding what the market wants and really pushing forward with it, what they're trying to do is shut down the competition of a game really doesn't have that much in common with what Pokemon.
And I would argue, I would say that this actually inclines people to play Palworld that much more. You're only making people curious by trying to censor and boycott Palworld as much as you can. Like, you're not being very smart. Bring them into the fold. Try doing that instead.
And they're doing it because this game is wildly successful. And I think that even in a way, because it is innovative. Because it's like they're mad that they didn't do it, or they had planned.
This is what I said. They're mad they didn't come up with this idea because they're stuck in the same cycle, the same story, the same format, with some exceptions.
The head that their innovation of this sort was slated for 2033, and how dare somebody beat them to the punch when we promise we had already thought of this. We just have to milk it for as long as possible. Miltank it for as long as possible. Because Nintendo aren't going after Cassette Beasts, or after Temtem, or after dozens of other heavily Pokemon-inspired
Makes sense. Oh, they're only coming after that one because it's so successful.
Games that are much more one-to-one direct clone of what Pokemon does, but trying to innovate on things that are more essential to the turn
And I've seen a bunch of these on mobile on mobile phones, like, you know, with those advertisements. I've seen a bunch of those.
based combat systems of Pokemon. They haven't gone after those. They went after
Wow.
Pal World, the one that, while still being a creature collector, and yes,
Here we go, the gates of hell
aesthetically
and Bayonetta.
has a lot of similarities which are, again, not the point of the lawsuit, it does innovate. And it does something not just very exciting and very appealing to, again, millions of people, but it found success doing so in a way that Nintendo just didn't feel like accepting this time around. Now look, will Nintendo win this lawsuit? I have no idea about Japanese law. If this were happening in a multitude of different countries, I would actually have a decent opinion on it, and most of the time I would say, hell no. Are you crazy? But I do not know about Japan. This is a national lawsuit, and the most I can say in Japanese is probably Ikuzo Doraemon-kun. I don't know, bro. But what I can tell you is that there is a huge difference between companies mass filing patents that then they don't act on, and then people just kind of forget about it, and indies don't have to hire lawyers to figure out by digging through the hundreds, thousands of patents of other companies if they would be at risk for implementing a game mechanic. There's a big difference between that and actually having a company execute on them and take people to court for them. Because that sort of danger, the idea that that could happen to you, is enough to stifle the creativity of small and medium developers alike that are looking to iterate on certain ideas. And in case it isn't clear, video games are an iterative medium. We constantly move forward, evolve, grow, and find better things by directly taking inspiration from things before them. It doesn't matter if it's all in the same lineage, in the way that you can kind of trace a very clear line between Kingsfield to Bloodborne, or in how the first-person shooter genre has changed, or in how the RTS genre sort of mutated into MOBAs. It is a place where taking ideas that exist and just tinkering with them a bit is how we reach some of the greatest games of all time. And to have a looming threat and the allowance for these companies to just sit there and hold on to these threats, to maybe potentially just throw them out whenever they feel like, is not good for the industry. And it's one of the reasons I think that the Pal World lawsuit is very much worth paying attention to, pending actual addressing of this issue and how it affects video games. Overall, though, at the end of the day, what I wanted to accomplish with this video is to make sure that you were informed of this, what was actually happening, and why.
All right, I'm gonna head out, but yeah, I agree and disagree with a few things that he said. I will link his video down below so you can subscribe to him, but I have to use the bathroom. Okay, so that's why I kind of fast forwarded at the end. But let me know what you think about this video down in the comments below. Let me know what other gaming reactions you want me to, game videos you want me to react to. Like and subscribe if you vibe, become a beaut today, and I will see you guys on live streams. Take care of yourselves, and thanks for stopping by. Later.